Good evening everyone, and I wanted to do a quick video, a sort of compare and contrast, if you like, between the Fairy Rotodyne here from the late 1950s. This is a what if in modern Malagasy combat search and rescue service, and the XC-142 tri-service project of the United States from the mid-1960s. Now, there is being a bit of a change around. The bad lieutenants are going to focus on the MC-142, as I call it in my what if service, and the Air Force will retain its Rotodynes with a slightly different squadron taking ownership for them, and the wisteria is just there because it had to get moved off the table, and it's quite big. So these are essentially two different ways of achieving the same thing. However, I think the XC-142 has more potential than the Rotodyne for military applications. I think that because if you look at it, it's large boxy fuselage. It's like a Skyvan on steroids. And the Rotodyne has a more streamlined fuselage, which is longer. The Rotodyne, of course, was designed more as a civilian airliner from the offset, and the XC-142 was designed really as a military aircraft from the offset. So there's quite a big difference between them. The XC-142 is very much a utilitarian aircraft, and the Rotodyne is very much sleek, commercial derived aircraft. Now, the Rotodyne actually has a higher payload. Its payload is double the XC-142, but in practice I don't think it is anywhere near as usable as the XC-142, which is why I've got it in the combat search and rescue role, where speed and maybe not the biggest cabin capacity is better. I've got rid of the arm chopper minigun location here and just covered that with the hatch, sort of an escape hatch. It does retain the 50 cal because that's far enough away from the propeller there to be usable. It's got some extra gubbins there, searchlight, low level radar, forward looking infrared, and the MC-142 has got forward looking infrared. Its radar in this section here. So despite the fact it looks more boxy, it is actually a lot faster than the Rotodyne, interestingly. And cabin wise, door wise, the Rotodyne is limited by this clamshell arrangement, so the winch has to be at the rear, whereas the XC-142 actually tried and tested a hatch underneath with the winch coming out there, so it doesn't need the side door arrangement for winching, and I had to do away with that on the Rotodyne because basically the winch operator would become a propeller meat. So the side door on the XC-142, if I turn it to the light, is really just for crew entry and exit, and everything else is done via the cargo hatch and the winch hatch underneath. So personally, I think this is a much better transport aircraft, and it can have 4 of these 1-ton pallets and just chuck them out the back on parachutes, or just what they call dump truck offload. Now, when you try and fit these into the Rotodyne, you'll notice the Rotodyne does not have as large a fuselage. They will go in, but there isn't a lot of space left at all. So I think the XC-142 is the much better military application aircraft. The remaining Rotodynes that I've got in what if service, I'm going to do one as a historic one as a Gulf War one, and one as a radar dyne, which will have a large fold out radar underneath for sort of early warning stuff. Now there's again some massive differences between these two types. The XC-142, or the 142, the MC-142 as I'm calling it, is a tilt wing. So the wing tilts, and that's how it can land vertically and take off with the assistance of that tail rotor. The Rotodyne uses ducted hot gases from the engines into the propellers, sorry, into the rotor, down this channel here to these tip jets. They're not actually jets, they're just ducting that hot air. So the blades on this do not fold. The size of the Rotodyne is the size that it always is. It does not fold up any smaller than that. The XC-142 was designed to be carry capable and wing folded from here, with the wings folding back and the tailplane, the top of the tailplane folded over. So you can fit these onto carriers, onto marine assault ships in a way that you cannot do so with the Rotodyne. The reason you can't do that is because this pipe work here, the minute you start breaking that and folding it, I guess you could do it, but what you would then have is a weak spot and you've got hot gases coming out there. So that's got to be a really good mechanism there for essentially not allowing gas to escape, because if you've got gas to escape, that's your efficiency gone. So really, from my perspective as a military application, I don't think that the Rotodyne is, you know, in any way as potent as the XC-142, but it's still not bad. I'm not knocking it for what it was used for. So the Rotodyne for me is more of a fast passenger vertical landing aircraft. Combat search and rescue seems like an ideal role for it, although arguably the XC-142 and its derivatives could have easily fulfilled that role. The 142 is wider in the wing, but when you compare and contrast it to the Rotodyne, actually it is a much more compact package when you take into account that rotor blade. So yeah, two very different ways of doing it, a tilt wing and a gyrocopter. I've got both as I build what ifs. I like both. Personally, this is more usable, and that's why the Malagasy what if forces are running these out as a run out, really. Been in service since the early 60s in what if land. Not been in service for as long, of sort of going back to the future, kind of looking at some failed projects, buying some failed plans, buying up failed tooling, and making something that should have had its place in history have its place again. And there we go, and there's the Wisty. Take care, bye.